Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com. Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
All right, we roll on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Lots of talk about what happened this week with the suspensions and now a fine for George Iloka and the hits in the Monday night game and what Rob Gronkowski did. And some players, like many former players, are very confused as to what they can and can't do. Mm-hmm. And this led to an unbelievable rant by Steelers safety Mike Mitchell, who I should point out we've had on NFL Live a bunch of times. I don't think he's a dirty player at all. I think he's a great player. And I think he plays the game the way you should play it, hard and through the whistle. But he, after what happened Monday night with the Juju Smith suspension and the George Iloka suspension and what happened with Gronk over the weekend, let's just say Mike was confused and a little passionate about his confusion, and he wanted everybody to know.
This is not damn football. When I was 6 years old watching Charles Woodson, Rod Woodson, that Sean Taylor, the hitters, Jack Tatum, that's football. This ain't football. You got to know what the risk is when you sign up. No one wants to be paralyzed. No one wants to have head injuries. These are all things that are negative. But let's not try to turn football into a dangerous, barbaric game. This is how I've changed my family legacy. Before I got drafted, I had $368 to my bank account. That is far from the case today. I've changed my family legacy by this beautiful game of football for forever. So let's not try to turn it into some evil, dirty game. It's football. It's no different than UFC fighting. This is a combat, contact sport. There's going to be injuries. That's just what it is. But if you don't want to get injured, then don't come out here. This is for real men. This is a man's game. Ray Lewis said that a couple years ago. I stand by that. It's a man's game.
I understand that all what he's saying may be true, but I think the NFL, whether he likes it or not, is trying to adjust that to a new reality.
Listen, that's the biggest thing. And it's the way I was raised. I mean, when my dad, who coached myself and my brother Greg and my brother Bob, my dad played football in the Marines. He played football in the Canadian Football League. He was as tough as they come and told us before we played all the things that are going to happen. You're going to break bones. You're going to get stitches. You're going to get cut. You're going to get hurt. You're going to tear things. You're going to break things. It's going to happen. It happens. It's a tough sport, and he taught us to play as a tough sport. I tried to teach that to Mike and Jake when they were coming up and playing football, to play it as a tough sport, to hit somebody as hard as you can. You're going to get hit, all the things that can happen to you, and I get it. And I understand what he's saying about the sport. That's the thing. That's how I was raised. I tried to raise Mike and Jake. It's how Mike Mitchell was raised, and a lot of these guys are raised. And then, Trey, to your point, it's shifting now, because what happens is you find out, I keep bringing this up, but when I was a kid, we never wore seatbelts. You learned it was a lot better and smarter to wear a seatbelt. You learned it was smarter to wear a helmet when you were riding a bike, which is something we never did when I was a kid. You learned these things over time that were better. We're finding out more and more about the game and the ramifications of it. So the league is taking a look, again, a league that got sued and basically has given up about $1 billion off that lawsuit, but also we're finding out more information. So there are things you need to adjust. Some players don't like the adjustment and don't want to adjust. But I will say, to his defense, the hardest position to play in football now, Mike, is defensive backfield, because it is kind of ambiguous. Where do I hit a guy? I'm trying to hit a guy here, and then all of a sudden his level changes, and now I hit him here, and now I'm $40,000 lighter in my pocket. I understand that side of it, but Mike has to understand the game has changed some. Some people don't like it, but it is changed some, and it's not going back to what it was because of some of the things we're learning.
I think it's easier for former players and people on the outside to reconcile with that, too. Like, OCU Manura tweeted yesterday, "Are players really this dumb? Hate to say it, but come on. Former players have died and are dying horrible deaths because of head trauma. You're complaining because the league is trying to take steps to at least reduce it. Quote, make it flag football is ridiculous." So you have these guys, but to your point with Mike Mitchell, this is self-preservation. You have to have this mentality to survive playing a game as physical as this one is. And without it, I think you become less of the player that a lot of these guys pride themselves on being. So it's a difficult adjustment. We say all the time, the adjustment you have to make in the strike zone, on the fly with the target, the adjustment you have to make mentally with how you treat the thought process behind some of those hits, with how you treat the thought process of potentially holding yourself out if you believe you've got a concussion and doing right by your body physically in a way that wasn't necessarily apropos before. It's all something that's going to come slower than maybe everything else about these changes.
Hey, look, eventually these changes have to not come at the NFL level. They have to come at youth football level.
That's exactly right. So you want the next generation. Yes. So these players are used to doing it a way, and for a couple of years now, they've been told to change. We always talk about players being able to adjust. They're trying. I think they're adjusting some, but it's coming at a slower rate, and they don't like the kind of the attitude adjustment out there. I think it is going to take the next kind of generation through that are learning the game maybe a different way to see how it ends up when those young kids are in the NFL.
Yeah, trickle down's not going to work. It's got to trickle up in this situation.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. It is a beautiful day, a beautiful Thursday. Glad you're hanging out with us this morning. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It is a start to another NFL Thursday. We got a lot to get to with the Saints and Falcons, and a huge game for Atlanta, which we will talk about. And we also have the recurring rant retribution, if you will, from Steelers safety Mike Mitchell. But you
listen, this is becoming a big thing in football because there are a number of people who don't like the way football is going with the hitting, and there's a number of people who do understand it. I do wonder out there with football fans, where are you with this? Do you like seeing it trying to have less of the hits that we have seen in the past? Or do you want to see that more? Bucky tweets, I agree 1,000% with Mike Mitchell. Football is a tough sport. I don't care how much the NFL tries to make the game safer. You will never take injuries out of the NFL. It's almost certainly a certainty that you're going to get hurt playing football. Bucky, you're right. I mean, we said that 1,000 times. You are correct. But that doesn't mean you can't adjust to things. You adjust to situations as they arise. We are finding out more information, especially about head injuries in football, so you adjust to that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What happens is what B.J. David then says. He says it's getting more complicated. That's the thing. So we're adjusting, but the adjustment is becoming complicated, especially if you're a linebacker or someone in the secondary on where you can hit somebody. So I understand. And listen, I played in an era. I will not, the play I remember the most, listen, every play I tried to drive, just like my dad taught me, drive somebody, and I tried to teach my kids. You drive someone into the ground with a clean hit, and if they get up, then that's great. If they don't, that's part of the game that you accept. It sounds harsh, it sounds bad, but that's the way it was. I tried to hit everybody as hard as I could. There was a play where Emmitt Smith was running on a sideline. It was along the sideline, and I had a shot at him, and I was running full speed. And, I mean, I literally had time to think, I am going to try and knock him out of his uniform. I want to hit him that hard, whether it was in the shoulders, the chest, the head, didn't care. I was going to dive at him, go after him, and try and destroy him. Now, I hit him as hard as I possibly could, and it was like a boxing match where you hit someone with your best punch, and their head turns, and then they look at you, and you go, oh, God. That's what happened. I knocked him. I mean, he flew out of bounds.
Didn't quite work out the way you'd hoped?
Bounced right back up and ran into the huddle. I went, damn. But the bottom line was, that's the thought process that I had, and the thought process you have playing this game. But when you learn more things about it and you need to adjust for some of the safety issues, that has to happen. You can't just keep screaming out there and be bloodthirsty when you're saying, wait a minute, some of the results we're seeing now, we're seeing later, they're maybe tying together. We're learning more about that. So we have to adjust a little bit. I don't have a problem with that. But again, like we're both doing, Mike. We're flying at it from 30,000 feet now. We're no longer on the field in the bang-bang decisions.
And I think that's the problem is we see this in a lot of things. I mean, we saw this in a very different realm of what that Players Coalition dealt with and what the NFL deals with the CBA every year. You always talk about representing the interest of the bulk of your players. For the meat of the bell curve of players, guys don't have the luxury of worrying about that. Mike Mitchell said that he changed his family's life forever and their legacy with the amount of money he's made in football. Yep. And so most guys can only see that and really only have that to worry about is how can I grab as much cash as I can in this process? So all they see is you lightening their wallet for something they look at and wonder, and that's why people bring up this point is football is always going to be violent, is they're wondering, is this in vain? Like, as much as the NFL is doing this in an effort to try and make it look like they're about player safety and spinning this forward, most guys are asking themselves, can you? Or is this just them lightening their wallets so they can spin this for PR? Because when you look at the fans and the people that are most outraged by this, I wonder this a lot as someone who certainly was a former player, so look at it from a different perspective, but also now in the media. The media is about as much closer to the players than the fans. They work with these guys, they meet them in different settings, they talk to them and learn about them as people. So I think the media is a little more conditioned to see the humanity in these guys and feel slighted when you see that humanity compromised by the violence of this game. But fans are detached even another level from that. And so to expect them to care in the same way is probably a little bit misguided in most cases. And so you're wondering who you're trying to please. Are you trying to please a fan base that may still be just as bloodthirsty, or a media who is finally coming around to seeing this happen to people they consider friends in a lot of cases?
Well, look, that is absolutely the case, because football is different than almost any other sport, because you wouldn't know half the football players if you saw them on the street.
Right.
Because you're wearing a helmet. You're wearing, a lot of times, a visor over your face. Let's be honest, as a fan, you root for laundry. Okay, you see these guys not as people, you see them as a widget. You see them as a product. And that goes into the draft, and that's why, from my perspective, when we do the draft, we try and humanize these kids. They're kids, okay? They're not a little block that you put into this hole that makes everything around it sort of work. We see them completely differently because we relate to them when we talk to them when they have that mask off and we have that uniform away. You know, LeBron's out there in shorts. Everybody knows who he is, you know. Baseball players the same way. There's a difference in football because you see them not so much because of the nature of the sport, but also because of what they wear. They don't seem that personable to you on a lot of levels.
And then all of a sudden you see Ryan Shazier down on the field and they remind you that he's a new father and he's got a family and all of these things that just punch you right in the gut. So when those moments come, they are swift and they are devastating.
They absolutely are. And by the way, there was some good news, we believe, yesterday with Ryan Shazier. They were able to move him from Cincinnati to Pittsburgh. And, you know, you have to believe that there had to be some sort of progress.
Absolutely, to be able to do that.
For able to move him. So we'll hopefully have more updates on Ryan Shazier throughout the week, or maybe even later on today. We don't know. But the fact that he was able to move from Cincinnati to Pittsburgh can be perceived as somewhat of a positive sign. Golic and Wingo, presented by Amazon. Amazon has everything you need for the perfect holiday get-together, from whining to dining to reclining together afterwards. Visit Amazon today. Now, all of this, sort of what we're talking about, was fueled by the Mike Mitchell rant, which we talked a little bit earlier in the last hour about how football is never going to change. But to some of the frustrations you guys were talking about, Mike Mitchell went on talking about, hey, look, just tell me what I can and can't do and be consistent with it, because that's the problem I have now.
You know, I signed up to play full-speed contact football, and we're not doing that. I feel like I got to ask a guy, hey, are you ready for me to hit you right now before I hit you? And that's crazy. I'm going to mess around and get hurt trying to protect an offensive player because he's running an over route. Your quarterback shouldn't have threw that ball messed up. That happened 2 years ago. I'm not joking at all. Andy Dalton threw a ball to Tyler Eifert 2 years ago. Tyler Eifert had to dive for it. I was aiming for his gut. But if he don't dive, he don't get in the head. That's $50,000 out of my pocket, though, because Andy throws a bad ball. And at first you're taking our money, but now, you know, I got like Matt Hasselbeck calling me a dirty player and trying my character, and we've never met before. We got to do better. I said it yesterday. We got to do better as players when we sign the next CBA. We got to get better leadership as who's running the league, because obviously everybody from fans, owners, players are all disappointed in Roger Goodell. We just got to do better. We can't have a guy where you just hand out discipline on how you see fit. There needs to be a set guideline of how we do what we do. But like I said, man, it's Steelers versus the world.
Well, there's a lot to get into there, and there's a lot that I think is very valid in what he's saying there. I don't know how anybody plays safety or linebacker anymore with the shrinking of the strike zone. And look, he's right. I mean, we were just watching that replay of that thing 2 years ago on TV. If that's a better throw, I mean, he's right with the Andy Dalton thing. If that's a better throw, then maybe Tyler Eifert doesn't get hurt there, and that changes the dynamic of what a player can do and how he's trying to stop him.
It does. And listen, Tyler Eifert's a guy you and Jake played with, and we all know very well. And you're right, that pass hits him in stride. That hit gets him in the midsection, and not in the head. But the DB is responsible for it, and people will say, well, you can't dive. Well, I mean, when you're a few yards away and you have to make a play, diving sometimes is a quicker way to get there, and putting your shoulder out or your head out. It's such bang plays. I understand his frustration. I absolutely understand his frustration. And I don't know where the answer is going to be, because there's, with the talk of now even more rules, the talk of possibly the targeting. Now it's not only lightening your wallet, but there's always a threat of lightening your wallet and being suspended. Now there could be the threat of being tossed out of that game itself if they go through with this targeting rule. So I understand his frustration. I don't know, he brought up the CBA. I don't know where that's going to go, because quite honestly, Mike Mitchell is 30 years old. That CBA isn't even going to be in play for another 3 years. He may not even be in the league. There's going to be a number of guys that are complaining right now, and I understand their complaints, that aren't going to be in the league. So you're talking about who then is. It's the younger guys. It's guys who aren't even in the league yet. Guys who get in the league this coming draft are going to be in the league 3 years when this comes into play. So it's a different set of circumstances of guys that want to get theirs now before they're done, as opposed to, do we fight for the next guy that's coming up?
And that's why I'd be more interested in the opinion of a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, whose suspension was upheld, who's going to sit one game for playing a brand of football that would have been okay a while ago. How does he view the way that this is all going down? Because I think just getting into a glimpse of the mentality of the guys that are coming up and going to be that next generation, we've made a huge deal out of how young he is. So he's a guy that probably will be around for the next CBA, and probably will be someone who is very uniquely affected by that. What is the mentality of the guys that are coming in right now that have been victims of this system in the way that we've seen, the system that Mike Mitchell's lamenting right now?
Well, that's the thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, because Hines Ward is a celebrated Steeler, not only for his ability to throw the ball and catch the ball, for the hits that he put on players like Juju Smith-Schuster just got suspended for. And again, the rules have changed. I understand that. And people have to understand that that's the new reality. Those peel back blocks, they don't want those anymore. But that was what made Hines Ward a legendary Steeler, those kind of plays. And to the point that Mike alluded to, Mike Mitchell, I got too many Mikes here, Mike Mitchell, the Steeler safety, and you, Mike Golic, and Mike Golic Jr. expounded on. Unfortunately for Mike, he's 30 years old. And he probably, in 3 years when the new CBA starts, I hope he's in the league.
Right.
But how many safeties are playing 13 years in? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then it becomes, that's the battle that the players are never going to be able to win, because they won't have the longevity and the resources to hold out the way the owners can. It's billionaires versus millionaires. It's never a fair fight. It's never a fair fight.
That's the macro, and I get his micro frustration of, wait a minute, I'm playing for a while here. As you mentioned before, Mike, he said, I set my family up forever because of the money I made here, and now you're taking money away from me for I think is going to be a good tackle, and I got a guy changing his level, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, what the hell am I supposed to do out here?
Right.
And you're taking my money. It is confusing, and unfortunately, there seem to be going to be even more, possibly more rules added when, to the point we've been making, maybe define them more with the games or how the discipline is going to be handed out, at least, because players always like, listen, we are itinerary life guys, right? Be here at this time, be here at that time. If you don't, this is what's going to happen. We want to know what's going to happen to me if I do this. Okay, at least now I know that. Now, can we get past the gray area of what I actually did to earn those games or that fine?
Right. Yep. Look, and we'll see what happens going forward. That's obviously going to be a discussion to continue, and this topic's not going to go anywhere because a lot of players are very frustrated about this. Well, again, Mike and Mike are here. Trey Wingo, Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN. You almost had to use the swear jar. Almost had to use the swear jar for the first time. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. But we move on because it's time for another edition of
Fill in the Blank with Golic and Wingo.
All right, fill in the blank, brought to you by Mahindra Tractors and Utility Vehicles. Mahindra USA, the world's #1 selling tractor. Okay, guys, you ready? Mm-hmm. Of the 4 10-2 teams, The one you're least confident in, Vikings, Eagles, Steelers, or Patriots, who is it?
Wow. That's a great question because how do you lose confidence in a 10-2 team? So this is how I'm going to separate it because I have confidence in all of them. I'll go to the quarterback. The least quarterback, and that would be Case Keenum right now. So, and I don't even want it to make it sound like a slight, but you're asking me to pick one. I'm going to pick the one of the quarterback because Wentz is playing fantastic, and then you have Big Ben and Brady, so those are no-brainers.
I'd actually probably go with the Eagles on this one. I look at the Vikings top to bottom, probably most complete in every other facet. I think they've got a better defense, slightly better defense than the Steelers. And if you're going to take one of the two teams that's going to spread talent around, I'm going to trust the one that's got Tom Brady at quarterback and the Eagles model that we'll see. This is a big 2-game stretch for them. At LA this weekend against the Rams is going to tell us a lot about who this team is going down the stretch.
Yeah, this may sound crazy, but I'm going to say the Steelers, and I'll tell you why. Because for them to go all the way, the team that they're going to have to beat is New England. And historically, they have not done a very good job of finding a way to beat New England in the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era. And again, Week 15 game coming up is huge next week because that game will be in Pittsburgh between these two. I get it was in Pittsburgh last year, but it was early in the season, and Landry Jones was the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in that game. So if they're ever going to beat them with all these guys healthy, this might be the time. But I haven't seen that from this Pittsburgh unit going up against the Patriots. Okay, we continue with fill in the blank. This is a good one. Jerry Jones' first words to Roger Goodell at next week's owners' meetings in Dallas will be?
Choose your words carefully. I have snipers on the roof.
Okay, all right.
I mean, in all honesty, I'm sure it'll be cordial. It sounded like at the most recent round of owners' meetings, there was a cordial nature to it because Jerry Jones sort of understood the road that this is going down. This is going to be a slow play from him. It's going to be calculated, and it's one that I think for Jerry Jones' ends is going to take place behind closed doors that don't involve Roger in the room.
It'll be one of those handshakes leading to that somewhat awkward hug, and the handshake will be the joke, you're buying, and then into the hug, it'll be whispered in his ear, I'm not done with you yet.
Yeah. Here's the thing I bet he won't say to him, you won.
No.
I don't know what he's going to say, but he's not going to say, hey, congratulations on winning this one.
Right.
Pretty sure that's not going to happen. Okay, Andy Reid didn't wait for anybody from the league to do this.
Right.
In a big division game coming up when they've got the Raiders, the Chiefs suspended their head coach. They suspended Marcus Peters for throwing a ref's flag. So the Chiefs doing the suspending of Marcus Peters for throwing a ref's flag is
very Herm Edwards-esque.
That's exactly right.
Where a coach not really caring about what the league's going to do, but taking care of responsibility of his own team. Marcus Peters again threw the flag and then walked off the field. And Andy Reid, I think, kind of covered for him in the presser after saying, well, Marcus thought he was thrown out of the game. That's why I left the field, when he was never thrown out of the game. He just left the field himself and then came back and said it was something about his socks. I have no idea. So that's, Andy Reid, saying, I'm going to take care of this. I'm not worrying about the league.
Yeah, I would say leadership in that vein, because this is not outcome dependent. He doesn't care that this is a huge division game for them while they're all knotted at the top. He doesn't care what the ramifications are going to be because he's got job security and he's got security in himself and his coaching style, and that's not something we've seen a ton of lately, whether it's what happened with the Giants, whether it's what happened in the college ranks at Tennessee. It's refreshing to see someone with the confidence and the ability to say, no, this is where I draw the line in the stand. You're going to live by my rules here, regardless of how it hurts us, even if I may disagree with it.
Yeah, I think it's admirable, because, look, they've lost 6 of their last 7 games. They started 5-0, and they're in dire situations now. They may not make the playoffs, but Andy Reid is making a statement on how he wants his players to behave, and we had Herm in here, and this has been a slow play with Marcus Peters over the last couple of years. Look, he's an exceptional player, but there have been some issues. And I think it finally came to a head when he thought he was ejected, came back out, tried to play without socks on for the latter part of that game with the Jets. And I think Andy's just saying, look, enough is enough, and I'm making a line in the sand, much in the way Herm did with Larry Johnson when he was in Kansas City, and also with John Abraham when he was with New York.
Yep.
Okay, this is interesting. We got Chip Kelly, Willie Taggart, Dan Mullen, Jimbo Fisher, Scott Frost, Jeremy Pruitt now, we believe, finalizing the deal at Tennessee. The most successful new college football coaching hire will be?
I'm going to go with what the lifeblood of college sports is, and that's recruiting. And I'm going to give the edge to guys who have had success. That's Chip Kelly and that's Jimbo Fisher. They both have had success at the schools, Chip Kelly at Oregon, Jimbo Fisher, Florida State, of going into homes and getting some of the top athletes. So And in their new places now, Texas A&M and UCLA, I still think they have the clout to walk into these
So you're making this a combo platter? Or are you sticking with one?
No. I've narrowed it down to those two, and then I'll probably lead more toward Chip Kelly. I think Chip Kelly is kind of the college coach type of player of today, running those offensive plays. Players know they can move on to the NFL from him, and he runs that quick, fun offense. I think players could gravitate to that.
I think they could. The problem I have with Chip Kelly, because the system is proven, it's in there, but it requires a quarterback, and they're losing maybe the top quarterback in the draft in Josh Rosen. Maybe not a Chip Kelly quarterback system kind of guy, but one of the best in the country, and that's hard to replace given the lack of talent on the rest of that team. I'd look at Willie Taggart. This is a Florida State team that had a lot of expectations coming into the season. Is going to get DeAndre Francois back healthy this coming season, and I think he's going to walk into a more talented situation in a conference that's more winnable than most of these and is primed for an early jump here.
I wonder if he'll leave in a year.
Probably.
That would be the issue with Willie. What's the expiration date on the milk carton, right? Because it tends to go bad pretty quickly. What is he? He's coached only in one of the 4 games that is
bowl games
that his team has been eligible
last
for.
Few years,
I'm going to go with Dan Mullen, and I'll tell you why. Because Dan Mullen has made quarterbacks everywhere he's been.
He has.
I mean, look, Starkville, Mississippi is a hard place to find people to get to go to and win, and he did a great job there. He made Dak Prescott. Mm-hmm. He was part of Tim Tebow, and we talk about quarterback whisperer. He's going to have a lot of people.
Part of Alex Smith at Utah as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think Dan Mullen has a real good shot to be the most successful of all these.
He's got a nice freshman there, too, in Felipe Franks, who's coming off a season where he got some action in games, meaningful time that can absolutely benefit a kid in the offseason.
Okay, let's move to the baseball here. Rafael Palmeiro wants to make a comeback at the age of 53. So Rafi trying to make a comeback at the age of 53 is
aggressive. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. Well, I'll say that impossible. It's not happening. The oldest player I know was Julio Franco, who was 49 when he retired in 2007. Rafi's son is in the Orioles system right now. I think he's 22 years old. I would say impossible. I don't think there's any way he gets back to the majors and does anything.
I'd say it's trendy. Listen, guys beating back the clock is what's hot in sports right now. We got that Tom Brady and LeBron James pull up for a reason. Right now, it's because guys are trying to play longer. Who was it? Russell Wilson came out the other day and said he wanted to play into his mid-40s. So 53, next 10, 15 years is going to look like chump change.
I hope so. I mean, look, I'll say Minnie Minoso has took at-bats, I think, in his 70s at one point. But a regular play, let's just say I think it's wishful thinking. Okay, I ran into Herschel Walker a few years ago doing something, and he said he believes he could still come back. I'm like, that's great for you, but there's zero chance.
Yeah, I mean, T.O. keeps talking about coming back.
Dad, you going to start the comeback trail?
I think
absolutely
it's
not.
possible
that
he could be a DH at 53. I think that's possible. But then what? You're just going to pull him after he gets to first base? I mean,
I would even question if he could do that.
You could be a nice second down specialist, Dad. Not even first down, not third down. Let's just go second down.
I'm not even going to go there. But with Rafael Palmeiro, dream big. Dream big, kids.
There you go.
Don't let anybody limit you but you.
Nothing's impossible.
And it's never happening for
That's true. I'm only a year older than him. Maybe I should think about it.
Do it. Think about that. And let me know how that works out for you.
I'm 240, which means I'm at safety weight right now.
So how's your 40 time then we need to know?
Are you kidding me?
There it is.
And you have the money to pay the fines.
That's a good point.
There it is.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Every once in a while, someone like Adam Schefter drops in person, in studio to give us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Straight Talk here, obviously, Adam, is that Roger Goodell got the contract extension. Jerry Jones, despite his best efforts, was not able to delay it.
Yep.
However, you said something very interesting, which is you think that there are still things Jerry Jones is trying to fight here.
Well,
what can he stop now at this point?
No, listen, the contract is done. So Jerry is not going to prevail there. But again, I think he got his message heard. I think he brought a lot of attention to the issue. Look, we've never seen in the history of sports a commissioner's contract so openly discussed and openly debated. And I know Arthur Blank told Peter King that they were very transparent. I don't know if it was exactly like that they were very transparent. It just, all these things happened to come out over time. And so everybody got to take an up-close look at that contract. I know a lot of people have been wondering, did Roger get the free private jet? Did he get life care? Well, NFL employees basically get long-term health care after they leave. So in a way, you don't have to ask. He's going to have health care for life once he leaves that job. And then also in relation to the jet, the league office has an arrangement so he can buy some of that time that the league gets in a discounted price. So he can basically have a portion of that for all those wanting to know if he did get the private jet. He has access to that private jet, yes.
So
it's a big win for the big guy.
It's a big, and listen, getting past a lot of people saying, how does he get paid that? And the bottom line is, as I said, whoever's negotiating a contract anywhere, anybody can say no. You ask for what you want, and if both sides agree, then that's what you pay the guy. So
I remember back when I was in Denver, I called the great agent Jack Mills at the time. The Broncos had signed this offensive lineman named Don Maggs, if my memory serves me correctly, in 1993.
I was a teammate of Don Maggs in Houston.
And it was like a 3-year, $5 million deal, which at the time seemed like a lot of money. And I called Jack and I said, Jack, is he worth 3 years and $5 million? And Jack said, Adam, if somebody is willing to pay you something, then you're worth it.
That's exactly right.
In this particular case, the owners are willing to pay Roger Goodell $200 million.
So on that note, that's done. And listen, more power to anybody getting what they can get. I have zero problem with that. But going forward, when the owners have to make decisions now for the good of the game going forward, how is the relationships? You had that compensation committee that Jerry Jones was going to serve papers to, which everybody has egos, but with billionaires, maybe the egos get even more inflated. Like, wait a minute, you're going to do that to us? So what, if any, is there a fallout from this?
Well, I think it's been made public that there are owners, not just Jerry, who are unhappy with what's gone on in the league office and the way that some of it is structured. So I don't know that we've heard the last of that just yet. I think Jerry and Roger, I think they're fine. Like, they were in a room together at the meetings at the league office last week, I believe it was, and it was very cordial.
Well, how about Jerry and Arthur Blank? That's what I mean, like owner to owner.
Right.
You know what? When you're going to serve papers on another owner.
You know what I would say to that? All these things fade over time, number one. And number two, I don't think Jerry cares. I don't think he cares. So Arthur Blank is mad at Jerry?
Yeah.
Fine. Whatever. Who cares?
Well, it's funny, to that point, I was working in St. Louis when there was an NFL owners meeting in Chicago, and that's when Jerry sort of went outside the NFL trust and, swooshed up.
How'd that work out?
Swooshed up Texas Stadium and signed the deal with I think, Pepsi when the NFL dealership was Coke. And we were there when he got served that $500 million lawsuit. He looked over the pages and said, really? That's all they're suing me for? I've been sued for a lot more than this. And then he countersued, and he actually won, and everybody made money because of what Jerry Jones did, because it allowed not only there to be national endorsements, but local endorsements for every team.
Hey, Jerry is going to do what he thinks is best. And he doesn't care who's upset about it. He doesn't care if Arthur Blank's not sending him a holiday card anymore. Like, it doesn't matter to him anymore. It's fine.
All right, so what does matter, though? We saw the Mike Mitchell rant that went off, and we've been talking about this a lot. The problem,
he got Matt Hasselbeck in the strap now, too.
How about that, right? Yeah. I didn't hear what Matt said in relation to that, but
he called Mike Mitchell a dirty player.
Yeah,
Mike Mitchell did not like that.
Yeah, Mike Mitchell did not like that at all. And I've seen Mike play for a lot of years.
I don't think he's a dirty player.
I don't think he's a dirty player. But that's our opinions,
right.
And
everybody's
entitled to their own. But Mike Mitchell's going to be out there on the field. Were you surprised that Andy Reid made the move he did to take down Marcus Peters, his corner? Everything's on the line here this weekend.
So what? Yeah. You know what I would say to that?
Adam, so flippantly. So what?
You know what I would say to that? Like, again, and I'm a little disappointed us because we love to make big deals out of things. That's what we do. But the truth of the matter is, this should have been a huge deal on Monday.
Yep. Well, we had a million other things.
But that's exactly what I was going to say to you. Like, the Giants fired their head coach and GM in season for the first time since 1976 and basically made wholesale changes within their organization. One of the most tradition-rich, historic franchises there is in sports, blew out everybody. And you had the Gronk hit on Sunday, and Gronk's one of the most popular players in sports, and everybody's talking about that. So Marcus Peters became a footnote on Monday. And on any other Monday where the Giants aren't firing their people, where Gronk isn't WWE moving
Tre'Davious White
at that time, Marcus Peters would have been all over SportsCenter all day, throwing a flag into the stands,
then walking off the field,
and then coming back in, thinking he was rejected. Exactly, coming back onto the field without your socks on, and basically it was embarrassing, the whole thing. And so Andy Reid, to his credit, did the right thing yesterday. Suspended him for a game. I don't care that they're playing the Raiders, the division title. They had Marcus Peters last Sunday. How'd that work out for the defense?
Yeah, it hasn't worked out too. He's been out there on the field for a while now. The defense, it hasn't worked out. So let me go back to the Eli thing for a moment then, before we break. What's the relationship? I'm doing a lot of relationship talking this morning. Maybe I need to sit down on the couch with someone. The relationship with Eli and the Maris. I mean, because we don't know Spagnuolo, what's going to happen there. So,
and you know what? Listen, I think when they fired everybody this week, I really believe that hit the reset button. It was great fodder for a week. Hey, what's going to happen with Eli in the future? Where's he going to go? But the fact of the matter is, we don't know who the GM is going to be. We don't know who the head coach is going to be. We don't know how they're going to feel about Eli. And I think we could all sit here and safely say that the Giants are going to be and have been looking for a quarterback in the draft. There's nothing wrong with that.
Didn't they take Davis Webb in the third round?
They took Davis Webb in the third round. Mm-hmm. Maybe they like Davis Webb, and maybe they don't. You can never draft enough quarterbacks, as Ron Wolf knows. But even if they go and take a quarterback with their first pick, what could be better than having that guy learn from Eli Manning for a year or two? Look what Jimmy Garoppolo did. Look what Aaron Rodgers did. So, again, and by the way, who's to say at this age Eli can even make it through a season anymore, even though he did start 210 straight games? So, to me, you go take a quarterback. I think the door is completely open on a return to New York. Eli himself has said he doesn't see himself playing anywhere else other than New York with the Giants. Yeah. So I think those are the options you're looking at right now.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
Adam Schefter hanging out with us in the studio. Lots to get into, Adam. But first and foremost, we think there was some good news over the last day when Ryan Shazier, the Steelers linebacker, was able to be moved from Cincinnati back to Pittsburgh. What more can you tell us there?
First of all, I guess we can only go by what we actually see, the hard facts. It's such a sensitive situation, and everybody's thinking of him. But the fact that he's gone back to Pittsburgh is a good sign.
Yes.
I think there is some quiet, guarded optimism, but he's still going through tests. Nobody knows for sure. I think the signs are encouraging right now, but everybody's waiting for this update about whether he's going to be okay, and that hasn't come just yet. Right. And I get the sense it will, but I also have been told that he's still going through a lot of tests. They're being very careful, and everybody, at the very least, we know has Ryan Shazier in our thoughts and prayers.
That is the toughest part.
Yes.
You would thought by now you would hear something, because – as I said, everybody in the world was just watching and waiting for his legs to move, and that's what we wanted to see. And we've heard teammates that said they talked to him where he said he'd had sensation in all of his limbs, but we haven't heard really anything more than that. So, man, again, prayers up there and fingers crossed, no doubt about that. Back on the field in the talk, this is, again, the offseason, the competition committee and the rules gang talking about the possibility of implementing in some form, or maybe in the form it is fully right now in college, of the targeting rule, again, where a player could actually be thrown out of the game for a hit to the head. Does that I know they're going to discuss it. Mm-hmm. Do we think there's legs to this where I'm going to lose my mind even more?
Yeah, no, listen, if the league is talking
we know where you stand, big guy.
If the league is talking about it right now, the competition committee is certainly going to be discussing it during the year, during the offseason. I think there's a real chance it gets adopted. Now, again, if you go back to the offseason last year, the competition committee made it a point of emphasis to emphasize that flagrant hits would be hit with ejections this year, which is why we've gotten 10 players suspended due to these types of incidents, or now 9, being that Ilocas was withdrawn. But you're seeing more of that. The competition committee has tried to come up with ways to improve the game, make it safer, make it more consistent. Look, it's an inherently unsafe game. They got to do what they can. And so, I think there's a real chance that does happen next offseason.
Well, obviously.
Sorry there, Mike.
Yeah. Well, there's the one thing that I didn't like about what Troy Vincent said there, it's worked to a degree. Well, let's make sure it works to a better degree if we're going to adopt that in the NFL.
I guess my point is we're already in a gray area with how things have been done, and now, to me, it seems like we're going to add another layer to it.
Right. Well, we seem to do that every year to the officials, and I will say this: the officials in the NFL get criticized all the time. I would ask anyone that criticizes these officials to try and do all the things that they are asked to do and process
at
that
full speed.
At the speed in which you see it for the first time, not on the replays. Right. That's so clear and obvious. It's a completely different dynamic when it's coming at you at warp speed. And the other report, Adam, was there may be some sort of momentum being built to implement, for lack of a better term, a Gronk rule. If there's a hit like Mike Evans, for example, put on Marshawn Lattimore that had nothing to do with the play, when he ran into his back, or Gronk falling on Tre'Davious White, that would have a separate category with a stiffer penalty involved.
Well, I think what they talked about, what they are talking about, is a certain sort of infraction schedule. Sort of like if you penalized a rough at the passer, you're fined a certain amount. If you use obscene language, you're fined a certain amount. There's a schedule for fines. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to come up with a schedule for these types of plays. The Gronk play, the Mike Evans play, whatever play it is. You hit a player after the play, which we could just call it like that, right? After the play, after the whistle's blown, the play is dead, and a player gets hit and knocked to the ground or knocked out or whatever it may be, you're going to get suspended 1 game. If you hit a player with a punch, it's going to be 2 games. I'm just making these things up, but there's a clear-cut schedule that you assign a category to, just like they have for fines right now. That's where they come up with these fines. It falls into a certain category, and they say, okay, well, you violated the social media policy. You wore your socks too high. You were guilty of unnecessary roughness, and each thing has a certain fine. And I think they would do the same thing here.
Listen, I agree.
That way they can be consistent.
I have always said
that's what Mike Mitchell has been ranting.
That's exactly right, because I've always said athletes live by an itinerary, being told where to be, what to do, what time to do it, what to wear in some cases. And most of us don't. It takes the thinking out of anything, and I don't mind that. So it's nice to look at a sheet that say, you do this, it costs you this. You do this, it costs you that. At least then you know, and it's not like, oh, I did that. Boy, now what's going to happen? Am I going to get this or am I going to get this? At least you know what's there. So there is something to that. And then it's about enforcing it and sticking to it once you finally do it.
All right, so let's put this, we do over, under, or fill in the blank here on Golic and Wingo. What are the odds that, let's say, we have a targeting rule? What would you put the odds at? In 2018, there will be some form of a targeting rule in the NFL.
We're just guessing. I would guess we do. I'm not going to give a number to it, but I would guess we do.
And the same thing you think for a rule about more specific about plays that are away that don't happen within the
league
context
is very
of the game.
Aware of the conversations that are out there, right? Yeah. And there's nobody out there who can't say that the league, or there's nobody out there who can say the league has been consistent in this. I don't think that's one of the big complaints right now, right? That Gronk gets 1 game and George Aloka gets 1 game and Juju Smith-Schuster gets 1 game. And are these infractions all the same? Are they just the same? No. So I think if the league hears all this conversation and it's very aware of all this, it's certainly aware of the perception and images, it tries to combat that, and it tries to come up with ways to make the game safer. And if that helps, then why not do it?
I agree to that part of it. I think there will be more of a schedule, for lack of a better term, of things. I just can't bring myself to believe they're going to put it. There's already a rule where they can eject somebody out of a game. So I don't, to take it to the step of targeting, I just don't want to see it, so I can't bring myself to even think it's going to be part of it.
Well, we'll find out what the new reality is when they have the meetings in the offseason. Adam, thanks for being with us. See you on NFL Live today.
You're doing the show?
I will do.
We'll have a fun show today.
Absolutely.
I'll
we'll
be
have some
napping
fun
at home.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Let's not expect too much. There's only one person out there that's expecting way too much out of this guy too early. We know who that is. It's his father.
It is a couple of huge games in Week 14. Again, starting tonight. Big game in the NFC South, Saints and Falcons, but there's a huge one in L.A. The Eagles, having lost last Sunday night in Seattle, staying out west to take on the Rams in Los Angeles. And we had a chance to talk to Rams quarterback Jared Goff yesterday on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and I asked him what's been the biggest difference in his mind from his rookie season to this year.
Well, there's been a million things. I mean, what what Coach McVay's done and all the staff he's brought in and all the coaches we've had this year and some of the players that we brought in and just everything's kind of mixed together well this year. We've hit a little bit of a stride in these last 7-8 weeks or however long it's been, and feels good right now.
One of the things I'd always talk about with rookie quarterbacks, because expectations are so high when you're drafted high, is you don't draft a rookie or you don't draft a quarterback for his rookie year, you draft him for a decade. So we all know what went on in your rookie year and now how well you're doing now. You mentioned Sean McVay. What are some of the major points he has helped you most with in your transition from rookie year to this year?
I think it's just his ability to teach and his ability to, conceptualize things to not only myself but all other quarterbacks and the whole team in general. Really, I mean, he's a really, really good teacher for being as young as he is. He understands how to connect and how to teach, and has done a tremendous job of teaching me not only our offense but learning more and more about defenses as time's gone on.
Jared Goff joins us, and we're talking about this Rams offense. 30 points per game this season, tied with the Eagles for most in the NFL. For the Rams, that's a 16.1 points per game improvement from last season, and you may need them all when this Eagles team comes to town. This is a unique situation this Sunday. It'll just be the 8th time in the common draft era that goes back to 1967 where quarterbacks taken 1-2 against each other or in that same draft face off against each other. I know that you're focusing on the team, but how much talk has there been out there already about it's Goff versus Wentz for the first time in your careers?
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a fun storyline for people. I'm sure it seems to be that way anytime two of the quarterbacks in the same draft play. But again, I think I've said it a million times. I'm focused on their defense, and I know he'll do the same with our defense. I'm sure he's going to come ready to go, and hopefully do the same.
I think we're waiting for you guys to be in 3-point stances against one another on the 50-yard line. That's what everybody thinks is going to happen. Let's talk about that offense. And before we get to the wide receiver position, just Todd Gurley, you obviously saw what he could do last year. But one of the things I know I was talking about and others were as well, and it's been incorporated this year. Last year, for the entire year, he had 21 receptions, or 43 receptions last year. This year, he already has 48, so he's been incorporated so much more with games to go in the passing game. Talk about that transition for him and just how that has helped to open up the offense.
Yeah, he's really become a complete back, if not, the most complete back in the league, and, having him in the backfield changes our whole dynamic of our offense. We can do so much different things with him. And I think the thing that, people maybe don't see on film, and obviously he's so talented with the ball in his hands, but he's so smart in everything we do up front, protectionally, and everything that goes on with that. He's so smart and makes things right a lot of the times when it's not right. And I'm blessed to have him back there with me.
Well, listen, we had Gurley on NFL Live earlier this season, and all he wanted to do really was talk about his Georgia Bulldogs. I'm sure he's insufferable right now, right? That Georgia's in the college football playoff. How much is he trying to focus on the Eagles, and how much is he actually focusing on the Final Four in college football?
Well, he's got a few weeks till they play now, so they play on the 1st, right? So I think he's planning on going. But he's been talking about the other day. He showed up in all his Georgia gear. Him and Ogletree, they like to talk about their Bulldogs, and rightfully so. They're doing well.
Yeah, they really are. It's always fun to brag about the college when it's doing well. Another guy, and we're going to let you brag about him because, you look at your wide receiver core, and obviously with guys that you had, Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins coming over, guys that people knew. But here comes this Cooper Kupp kid. This nobody knew about him, and all of a sudden here he is leading the team in reception. So we'll just let you boast on him how you will.
Sure. Yeah, I think he's a very, very mature kid and a very mature, especially for a rookie. You see him come in here every day early and get his work done and acts like a pro, goes about his business the right way. And on Sundays it shows up. And, he's a really good player. There's a reason he had so much production in college. I know it was at a lower level, but it's still so much production regardless on a football field. And there's a reason for that. And, we're very lucky to have him this year. He's been a big part of the reason we've been successful up to this point.
Well, everything's working on that offense. And one thing that I think a lot of people took notice of had nothing to do with the actual plays, but the audible calls on those plays. We've heard Elvis, Dusty, Tupac, Obama, Ric Flair. I mean, who comes up with these audible calls, Jared?
Most of the time it's Sean, and then we'll discuss them sometimes. Sometimes they change, and sometimes us quarterbacks will come up with something that works better. Or, it goes around sometimes some of the offensive coaches will come up with stuff, but I say most of the time it's Sean.
But obviously in today's game, because defenses can pick up on things, you would have to change it quite often, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course. Sometimes it depends. If you can see, like in that situation on that tape, the sound effects deal, you couldn't see what the play was, so it really didn't matter. But if it shows up on a TV copy, yeah, there's times where that needs to happen for sure.
But just the remarkable turnaround for this offense and you since your rookie year has been amazing. Obviously, Sean McVay helps, and just being in the league another year helped. But from your perspective, what was the hardest thing about your rookie year that you've now found so much easier in year two that you were like, man, this was a real struggle for me last year, and now it's sort of coming to me a lot easier?
Man, I don't know if I can put one thing. I think so. One thing you learn is just how to go about your daily business. I don't know if on the field necessarily there's anything I can pinpoint, but just off the field and in the meetings and just daily at the facility, just how to go about your business, and you kind of begin to start a routine, I guess. You start to figure out, what your daily routine is, your daily rhythm and your weekly rhythm, and that's one thing I've been able to figure out a little bit better this year.
Talking to Jared Goff, quarterback of the Rams on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. They get set to take on the Eagles, the 1-2 quarterback picked a couple of years ago in the draft. How about the reception out there in L.A. for you, a team that moves, and obviously winning certainly helps, but talk about that transition and now to people out there and how they have, or maybe not all the way yet, or is still in the process of accepting you guys out there.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I think last year was definitely tough because we were new to the city and there was so much excitement and we didn't really, produce. But this year, it's been different. We've been much improved, and we've seen, the improvement with the fans as well. It's been awesome to see some new fans and also see the guys that have, come up and, been a Rams fan since, the 70s and 80s. And those are the cool people to meet where, they've been a fan for so long, followed the team to St. Louis, and now are still here when the team comes back. And it's really cool to get some of those fans back.
Well, speaking for two people who have been alive in the 70s and 80s, yeah we think those are cool people too.
I actually played against the Rams when they were in L.A. That's how old I am.
Well, we don't want to bore you with that. All right, Jared, listen, big game coming up. Could be home field implications on the line in the NFC. We appreciate you being with us.
Thanks, Jared.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Golic
makes me want to vomit and then punch you square in the face.
And Wingo.
Oh, he's saucy today.
We have a huge matchup Saturday night here on ESPN at Madison Square Garden. Vasily Lomachenko against Guillermo Rigondeaux for the junior welterweight championship. Mm-hmm. And delighted to have Teddy Atlas with us here on Golic and Wingo, who will be analyzing this matchup all weekend long. Teddy, this is about as good as it gets in terms of the resumes. This is something that's never happened before with these two fighters, right? Both two-time Olympic gold medalists.
Yeah, first time in the history of sport. And you're talking about a sport that's been around for, depending on what calculus you use, 200 years, back to the Greeks. But longer than baseball. And everybody thinks of baseball, of course, as the pastime that's been around the longest. But no, boxing's been swinging for a long time.
So we had the McGregor-Mayweather show, then we had the Triple G Alvarez fight, and now we have another boxing match, another fight. So where we keep talking about it was MMA kind of surpassing boxing, is boxing coming back? What is this going to do, and how can this help, this match?
Yeah, I mean, boxing, for me, boxing's always going to be the top because, you always hear this saying, for me, that life's not fair, you know, and it's the only place where wherever you came from, whatever your race, your creed, your religion, your background, what you didn't have, forget about what you had, what you didn't have, who your parents were, on one given night, you get in that ring. And if you're tough enough, if you're trained well enough, if you're strong enough, you're determined enough, you can be the best in the world where you came from nothing. You can have your hand raised for that one night.
Right.
And you could be the world champion. And people they're intrigued by that. That's why you see all the movie stars. You see all these guys because they want to see how much can somebody take? How far will somebody go? Yeah. What is the limits? And maybe they think to themselves, how far will I go? Maybe will I get in my boss's face today? Maybe will I say that I deserve something that I never thought that I could say before because I watch what somebody can do in that ring, in that squared circle, or in that chamber of truth. And there's nothing quite like seeing the truth come together when there's two men testing each other. This match is pretty special. I mean, you have two of the best pound-for-pound guys around, and you have two of the best amateurs of all time. And what makes it intriguing for me is that one creates his offense, that's Lomachenko, but he's also good at a lot of things. You know, in baseball, Willie Mays was one of the best, right?
Absolutely.
Well, how many dimensions could he do? How many skills? He had five.
Tool player.
Five-tool player. Okay, here it is. Here's the breakdown for me. Rigondeaux is a 4-tool player. Great defense. Great body puncher. Maybe the best body puncher in the game. Yeah, believe it or not. Great counter puncher. Great power. Here comes Lomachenko. He can do all those things. None of them quite as great, maybe, but all of them. Does them all really well. And he's got one other. He can lead. He can create offense on the front end. Lomachenko can use the jab and make things happen. He can be an artist that goes out there and he just says, oh, I'll make a building here. I'll make a tree here. I'll do whatever I want. He's creative. He's a master. The other guy, Rigondeaux, all the things I said, the only shortcoming why I favor Lomachenko is that Rigondeaux can't create offense. He's a sausage grinder. You come, you put the sausage in, he grinds you up. Yeah. He's a counterpuncher. He's a Floyd Mayweather, but he does it with more power. He needs your reckless offense or your aggression to be able to create a win and a scenario where he can create offense and do the things that he does so well. He needs that. And that's what makes it super interesting because Lomachenko has it on his shoulders to make this fight. He's the one who's going to make it exciting if it's going to be exciting.
Right.
The other one's going to wait for his moment. Yeah. So does he get a little reckless? Mm-hmm. Does wanting to show that he can entertain, which he wants to show. I did an interview with him out in California that's going to be showing, I think, today and tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we just saw it, yeah.
And so he said, I want to create. I want to go out there. I want to entertain. Rigondeaux doesn't care about entertaining. He cares about waiting for that one moment. Bang!
Bang.
and he wins the fight.
Can I tell you something? I want to fight
I
now.
know. I was
just listening to Teddy, I want to get. And now it'll last 7 seconds.
Yeah,
but
that's exactly
just listening
right.
to your passion, listening to you talk about this. Obviously, not just a great analyst for us, but a trainer for so many great fighters all the years. You got me fired up, man. Just listening to that, that was awesome. And to that point, at that one moment, I always go back to Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson. Right?
There it is.
I think there were no odds for that fight. Literally, the odds maker said there's zero chance that Buster Douglas could have won that fight, and he ends up being heavyweight champion of the world.
Buster Douglas' mom had died not that long before that fight. Buster Douglas always had skills. He always had size. He always had ability. But he didn't have the mental toughness to be heavyweight champ, to make the choices in the ring when the choices came at you hard and fast. And after his mother died, he was able to do that. Nothing could hurt him anymore. Nothing could make him afraid no more. He said, the hell with this, the hell with Tyson.
Right.
My mother died. I'm going to go out there and for one night, I'm going to be what I described earlier. I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be the best in the world. I'm not going to be afraid of a guy named Mike Tyson. And he was able to pull off.
I'm getting chills, man.
Yeah, how about it?
This is going to be great having you analyze this fights. If it's going to be like this, is phenomenal.
ESPN boxing analyst Teddy Atlas joining us on the show. Pennzoil Performance Line. Rigondeaux is jumping 2 weight classes for this right now. He hasn't lost a fight at pro or amateur since 2003, but he's the underdog in this. Is the reason because he's the counter guy or because he's going up a couple of weight classes? Why would he be the underdog?
People think maybe too small, too old. He's 37, right. The other guy's 29.
29, yeah.
Maybe too old, maybe too small, and maybe too inactive. He hasn't been active. Lomachenko's been more active. And again, doesn't create the offense on the front end. Depends on it on the back end. He's that sausage grinder. So a lot of people think, well, if it's a decision, then the guy who can create, uses jab and create on the front end, he's probably, you don't have to be a genius here. You don't have to be Angelo Dundee. You don't even have to be Teddy Atlas. Not that I'm anything, but to understand that guy who can create on the front end will probably be winning in the fight.
The aggressor.
Till that moment might come. Lomachenko doesn't have the power of Rigondeaux. Bang, that power. Punches are born, they're not made. And he was born to punch. But he's a guy, he's like being in a lake with piranha. He just takes pieces of you. So there's nothing left to be there.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Just takes pieces of you. Next thing you know, you say, oh my God, I'm a skeleton. I mean, like there's nothing left. The other guy, you're in there, it's like being in the ocean, in the deep blue. Remember that movie that they made that everybody was Jaws?
Yes.
And all of a sudden it's dark, it's quiet. You don't, nothing's going on. Bang! All of a sudden he comes out of the ocean and he just cuts you in half.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fight. You got the shark, you got the piranha. Will the shark come out of that deep blue and get there? Or will the piranha just peck away all night long?
By the way, next time you're coming in, we're having you at 6 a.m. to get us woke up and ready
how
to roll.
about it?
Because
No
Teddy's like a triple shot of espresso here.
Yeah.
This is great stuff. So again, that's the fight Saturday night, and you'll be analyzing that fight for us on ESPN on all our platforms. But I want to ask you about Oscar De La Hoya. Sure. He recently said he's thinking of coming out of retirement to fight Conor McGregor. We saw the big payday with McGregor and Mayweather this summer. Do you believe McGregor?
Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
All right, we roll on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Lots of talk about what happened this week with the suspensions and now a fine for George Iloka and the hits in the Monday night game and what Rob Gronkowski did. And some players, like many former players, are very confused as to what they can and can't do. Mm-hmm. And this led to an unbelievable rant by Steelers safety Mike Mitchell, who I should point out we've had on NFL Live a bunch of times. I don't think he's a dirty player at all. I think he's a great player. And I think he plays the game the way you should play it, hard and through the whistle. But he, after what happened Monday night with the Juju Smith suspension and the George Iloka suspension and what happened with Gronk over the weekend, let's just say Mike was confused and a little passionate about his confusion, and he wanted everybody to know.
This is not damn football. When I was 6 years old watching Charles Woodson, Rod Woodson, that Sean Taylor, the hitters, Jack Tatum, that's football. This ain't football. You got to know what the risk is when you sign up. No one wants to be paralyzed. No one wants to have head injuries. These are all things that are negative. But let's not try to turn football into a dangerous, barbaric game. This is how I've changed my family legacy. Before I got drafted, I had $368 to my bank account. That is far from the case today. I've changed my family legacy by this beautiful game of football for forever. So let's not try to turn it into some evil, dirty game. It's football. It's no different than UFC fighting. This is a combat, contact sport. There's going to be injuries. That's just what it is. But if you don't want to get injured, then don't come out here. This is for real men. This is a man's game. Ray Lewis said that a couple years ago. I stand by that. It's a man's